the species, save the humans, stop climate change. Stop climate change.
What's a policy that you would like to see implemented?
Well, last Thursday I was at the governor's task force for climate, and there were about 50 suits that showed up, about 20% women, 1 Native American. There were 4 of us that weren't officially assigned to the committee that were allowed in the room. And so at some point I got to ask a question, and that was nice, and I got to meet the lieutenant governor. But if there was anything that could be done, a good start would be to make this state a coal-free zone.
Okay.
One of the other things that could be done is that all semi-trucks in this state would be mandated to have those wind deflectors up on top of their cabs where the wind hits the box of their semi-trucks. And also to have those side guards in between the box's wheels that keeps the wind from collapsing, and that lowers gas mileage. And right now you've seen a new piece of technology come up that not deflects, but folds the wind in back of the truck body itself. All this makes a difference as far as not gas mileage, but diesel fuel consumption.
So you're saying a few changes to how semi-trucks in not just this state, but the country for that matter, the few changes, minor changes to semi-trucks could actually affect their consumption levels a lot.
Well, this is a win-win as far as the guys who run the trucks and drive or own the trucks. It's a win-win across the boards. It's a very minor adjustment, and it doesn't cost that all much. So that's something that can easily be done. Is those 3 mechanical adjustments to how trucks handle wind as they move through space.
I mean, do you think a lot of the resistance that people have against the environmental movement is because they're afraid that they're going to pay more in taxes?
Oh, eventually, at some point in the future, probably within the next 5 or 10 years. Not right now. Right now it's business like usual, obviously. But as time goes on, things are going to get a lot more expensive. And it's not going to be popular on the part of whatever the political faction is that's running this state. It's not going to be popular what happens as far as the cost involved in making adjustments. It all will make a difference on a monetary level at some point. Now the fossil fuel industry is going to keep trying to keep things business like usual, keep its subsidies, and all that kind of jazz.
And the subsidies, that's a really good point. I mean, the fact that we give money to these oil industries, I think would you agree that's an example of...
Do you want to talk about something that's more ludicrous than giving these guys money?
I mean, that's cronyism that I think you could even get socialists and libertarians and Greens and people of different persuasions to agree on. We are giving money away to these large oil companies.
I have a gentleman that passes by me here, and he says, and my name is Puff, my last name is Rice, and I got the nickname a long time ago off of Kellogg's cereal. But he says to me, Puff, this shouldn't be such a hard sell, the survival of the human species. But actually, as it turns out, it is. But it's something that goes across all religious lines, all political lines, anything that you happen to have lines for, whether it's race or sexuality, it doesn't matter. This thing about climate influences all of us across the boards.
One time we talked about pollution, then we started calling it global warming, now we call it climate change. Do you think there's like this effort to keep changing the name so that we get distracted?
Oh, absolutely. I think that, okay, let's look at another thing. Okay, manic depression used to be really descriptive about what was going on. Then people changed it and they sterilized it to bipolar. It made it something kind of anonymous on some level. But this thing about changing it, global warming is climate change. And right now, climate change, by the wording itself, has diluted the impact. Most people don't understand what that possibly means. What could it possibly mean? Global warming, on the other hand, is pretty descriptive.
Yeah, and I mean, don't you think that, we talk a lot about CO2, but don't you think there's a lot of other forms of pollution we should be concerned about as well?
Well, yeah, if we're talking about carbon, we're talking about methane. It's all a gas problem. We're gassing an entire planet. And, you think things were tough back in Holocaust times. We're about to lose 6 billion people in the very near future. And that's billion. We've got migrations around the planet that are so mammoth at this particular point in time. They're getting to borders and everybody's saying, no thanks, you can't come in here. So here's a bunch of folks with no jobs, no food, and nowhere to live. So what's the upside of that? Well, it's pretty easy to see. It's starvation and war. And that's what's going to go down. Now, it won't happen in Wisconsin. And in fact, we're going to be insulated from the catastrophes around this planet. We're not going to be underwater for the most part. We're not going to have any big hurricanes. We may have more tornadoes. We're more likely not going to burn to the ground like California. The major climate changes that are about to occur on a higher frequency and higher intensity are not going to hit Wisconsin. So we're in an enclave of civilization, which Madison has always been anyway.
I don't know if you're aware, the governor recently signed a bill making it a felony to protest pipelines and power companies on their property. I mean, basically taking a simple trespassing ticket from a misdemeanor to a felony, and any misdemeanor destruction of property or so forth is also now a felony. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I think it's patently insane. But beyond that, I can't go ahead and be any more descriptive. When you get a felony, you should actually get it for doing something important, not for jaywalking or for putting a poster up. Now, my personal opinion is, chaining yourself to the front of a oil company's pipeline or whatever it happens to be is fairly non-productive. So how do you actually get something done? Well, actually, I don't know. I don't see any kind of real impact being done by demonstrations. Books have been written about the effectiveness of non-violent demonstrations like this one, as opposed to doing something violent. And a non-violent demonstration is twice as effective. But also, if you take 25,000 people and you put them out here on the street, no one's going to notice. On the other hand, you get 4 people to get locked up and go to jail, everybody notices because they have some degree of empathy of someone who ended up in jail for no apparent reason.
As this huge gas or diesel powered UPS truck goes by.
Well, yeah, you could convert all those guys automatically into natural gas. But even that long range, short range, it's a better idea. Long range, it really has no sustainability either. Now, my information, although it's I think it's basically flawed, is that the natural gas has only 50% of the carbon.
Death to humanity.
Well, animals are better.
Yeah. No kidding.
Hey, by definition, we hate to look at it that way. We hate to look at ourselves as being animals, for one thing, but we also don't like to think about the fact that we're under the definition of vermin. If you look at what vermin do, they lead this kind of catastrophe. They kill other species. We don't like to look at ourselves in derogatory terms, and most of us like to pat ourselves on the back. There are things that are really counterproductive out there that people don't really understand. They feel good about themselves because they do it, but everything is about BTUs. It takes so many BTUs to go ahead and keep a garbage truck going or a recycling truck going, to move itself through space and time. And also, it takes so much to build a garbage truck as far as BTUs. And every human being that's alive is using BTUs in order to survive. You and I are burning them at this moment. And you can use the calories or BTUs however you want to understand it. But the fact is, it's all about fuel. And so when you look at the recycling movement, just look at how much it takes to go ahead and make all these garbage cans, all these recyclable cans. The woman who moves through the kitchen to go ahead and deliberately recycle her garbage and put it in different containers.
Or use all that
bags.
water to wash out the containers.
It goes on and on. And when you start looking at it from a practical viewpoint, you come up with a basic idea, and that is, it's a lot more effective just take all the stuff and put it in a hole in the ground and quit being disturbed about digging holes. Men are built around digging holes and building forts. It's what we do. It's what we were brought up on as kids. Dig bigger holes, put more of your garbage in them, and just give up on this recycling because it is really counterproductive. People may pat themselves on the back because they put their stuff in the garbage, but the fact is, I don't know if it's a plus. I think there's a real big case that somebody actually wrote a book about it, which I did not read. The only reason I think about garbage trucks and BTUs is my father ran the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He was the director of physical plant.
Thanks for watching, everybody, and if you want to help support more videos like this, please go to the PayPal link attached and donate $1. Thank you.